Hey guys, it's Matt here, and today I'm bringing you another episode of Matt Rants. So, last week we were a little bit Matt Rants light. We went back to our Let's Play roots, did some fun Let's Plays for different, we brought back some shows. We also ended up bringing, doing some Let's Plays for some specials, like, 4th of July and Friday 13th, or actually we extended our 4th of July specials. And so it was a very fun week, but now we're getting back to the Matt Rants grind, and we're talking about a topic that isn't that much fun. I want to jump back to some fun topics, but we've been talking about some news, and sometimes the news isn't that fun. So today we're talking about, is GameStop dead? Is GameStop dead? Rest in peace, GameStop, all that stuff. And the reason why I've waited so long to do this topic, I'm sure some of you guys in the comments below are like, well, this is pretty old news. It's because I wanted to see if there was going to be any new kind of revelations about this topic, if something big was going to come up. And so I kind of waited, bided my time, just kind of sat around, and after doing some research, I've realized that we're in the same position that we were a few weeks back. But you know what? Still, might as well talk about it. We've talked about this before when the recent CEO was leaving, and we were kind of wondering if GameStop was in trouble. And now, from the looks of it, they might possibly be. But here's the thing, though, that I think we do have to acknowledge is that, GameStop is a huge company, right? It's worldwide, in Canada and in other countries as well. They've still kept the EB Games banner and everything like that. So it's not as if GameStop is hurting in other places. Seemingly, it's only hurting in the U.S. Another thing I would like to mention as well is that, there does seem to be, like, the idea that GameStop is in trouble is more so the idea that GameStop wants to be bought out so that they don't get into further trouble, if you will. So they don't go down the rabbit hole any further. But I think something that we do have to acknowledge as well is that GameStop is, look, we might not like GameStop. We might think the brand, at least the name, is poisoned. But that doesn't necessarily mean that investors may think that, right? Investors just may look at the numbers, may look at the books. Now, when looking at the numbers and seeing that the numbers have been slowly falling, yes, it might not seem like a worthwhile opportunity, a business opportunity. But at the same time, I don't know if investors are specifically sitting back and they know the same memes that we know, right? Or at least people who manage these investors' finances know the same memes that we know about, me giving my entire console collection to GameStop, and they're like, excellent, I'll give you $1.05. Well, you know what? Maybe they'll be nice. They'll give me $1.25, just, because they don't have to give me a dime. They can just give me a quarter for my entire game collection. We all know the memes. We all know the jokes. But at the same time, I don't know if these investors actually know these same memes and jokes. And that does matter because there's definitely a disconnect. Something else I'm going to talk about later on during the week. There's definitely a disconnect between fan bases and sometimes, in fan base you can talk about the positivity and the negativity. A fan base versus the actual people investing and some of the stuff that they might know, right? Some of the dirt that they might have that we don't. But we definitely can't put aside something that I mentioned in a previous Matt Rants, just mentioned that earlier, the fact that there's been a high CEO turnover recently. Now, to be fair, one of the CEOs, he did pass away, and they had to find an interim CEO, but it's just very strange that once they brought in the official new CEO, after a few months, he left for personal reasons, which, as I mentioned during that Matt Rants that I did, I don't know the guy. Maybe it was for personal reasons. I hope everything's going okay in his life, but it might be him seeing writing on the wall that, again, we're not privy to that knowledge, to that information. So when I heard about this, when I heard that GameStop needs to be bought, otherwise there's definitely going to be some issues, I think from a fan perspective, my idea was, no, this is never going to happen. No. But from a from a business perspective, is it going to be bought? I mean, it really depends on what a company thinks they can do with it, right? What a large media company thinks, if it might seem silly, but when you have something like Amazon dominating, you have other companies coming in and thinking, well, how can we dominate? What can we do to have a foothold in this industry? So now granted, I don't think Amazon is dominating with retro games necessarily, and this channel usually focuses on retro games, but when it comes to newer games, yeah, I know a lot of people who buy their stuff through Amazon. I know a lot of people that forego getting stuff at brick and mortar stores in general. So yes, there is definitely an online focus nowadays, of course, duh, right? But at the same time, I do wonder if you're going to have a company potentially try to come in and buy out GameStop and then also fix their online store, which I don't think was terrible, but it was just a generic website. Potentially try to fix it up, make it better, have more stock just for the online store perhaps, and give better shipping and crazy things that are going to try to rival Amazon and potentially try to rival Amazon. Now, I'm not saying that's the best business decision. I'm not saying that a company that does this will win, but you see it all the time in business where, you have Amazon going, oh yeah, YouTube will buy Twitch. And then YouTube goes, oh yeah, and then, and then tries to step up its game, right? In my opinion, I think that competition breeds really cool things and innovation in business, which is why I love competition. So, but I don't know if in this case, a company, it'll be best if a company buys up GameStop just to try to compete with other brick and mortar stores. Now, I will admit though that it doesn't seem like there are any, and by the way, if you guys have local chain stores that are bigger than X amount of stores, you guys can put the limit on. I don't want to say what should be considered a big store or something like that. If you guys have one of those, then please tell me in the comments below. But as far as I know, it seems like at this point it's either GameStop or nothing in the US. Now, when I say or nothing, what I mean is that yes, GameStop has found a way to, and by the way, I have no problem with them trying to diversify their revenue stream, but it's still kind of funny how they've gone, you want the Funko Pops when you come into GameStop. It's just like, actually, the name of your store, good sir. But still, regardless, they have moved away from just selling games, but at the same time, their main focus arguably was games. You go into a GameStop for games or consoles or accessories or things like that, for your games, stuff like that. So the fact that, yes, there are Walmarts and Targets and a bunch of other places, but games aren't their primary concern. They're just one random, locked shelf or, glass case, and then that's it, right? So if it's not there, then you're not going to buy your games there. And then all of a sudden that store takes a hit when it comes to their game section as well, potentially. So, it's the idea that I would argue that if a company is trying to come in and buy GameStop, then perhaps it is due to the fact that not just the name and everything like that, but like it is a dedicated gaming store. Ish. I know some of you are going to laugh, t-shirts and the Funko Pops and all these other, trinkets, but still, depending on what GameStop you went to, it seemed like there were, at least the ones that I went to, it seemed like there was a majority of games, and the little stuff didn't actually overtake the entire store to the point where there was only one shelf dedicated to games. Maybe, again, if that's your experience, tell me below, but that hasn't been mine thus far. But yeah, it's just, it's a really sad topic, and the reason why, and I think some of you are like, oh, why is it a problem? Like, GameStop sucks. And in no way am I saying that GameStop does not. But what I am saying is that, these aren't, these jobs have not been automated, right? These aren't just a bunch of self-checkout counters and with like a security guard or two. And even that security guard would be paid as well. But my point is that these are real people whose jobs would be affected. And, despite the fact that people have told me that GameStop gives you shit hours anyway, there's still hours regardless. And there are still people who need those hours. So in no way am I rejoicing for the fact that GameStop is going to close. I will admit, I am rejoicing in the idea that GameStop executives might be getting a swift, firm kick in the behind and understanding, oh God, we've been doing some things wrong. If any of them have ever heard someone online and potentially thought, and I don't know these people, both people online and both the executives, but if any of them have heard people online and gone, who cares about their opinions? They don't own this, they don't own a major company. Who cares? Well, I think, you might need to care about, your consumers and their experience with your GameStop, instead of feeling like, yes, I understand you got to make a profit, but instead of feeling like they're getting, bashed over the head with pre-order this and, who cares about trusting the GameStop employee? Just say that the new game looked good. Who cares about trying to make money off used games by making them a little bit less expensive? Because yes, if you guys don't know, GameStop makes more money off used games than they do off new games, which is simply due to the fact that a new game, of course, you have to share some kind of revenue with the company that sold it to you, that gave it to you. There's some kind of contract there. But if you have a game, let's say, just picking a game out of nowhere, Dragon Ball FighterZ, if someone brings in their copy, maybe they beat it, they were like, I beat the main story, I'm good, I don't care about all the different combos, they don't play in tournaments. They give that game to their GameStop. GameStop promptly gives them 50 cents for it, despite the fact that they bought it last week, whatever. And then GameStop sells that game for more money than they're selling a new copy. At the end of the day, it's like, no one's going to buy that copy. Maybe one person if they're desperate. And then they do, and it's like, great, we made that sale. It's like, yeah, but you completely eroded customer confidence. So, confidence in your product and your company. So, I have no problem with executives waking up. The problem is that usually when it comes to any company, any kind of project, when the executives are waking up, people's jobs and people's livelihoods have been lost in the process. And I think that's my biggest problem with this. If GameStop goes under, it's sad, but it's not really part of my childhood. Yes, I've gotten some interesting stuff at GameStop over the years, especially when I was a wee little one, where, my mom got me my Nintendo 64. It was a Hey You Pikachu edition with a bunch of cool games. Yes, that is an early memory for me, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that GameStop has really had a bunch of issues, both with just trying to sell you games in general, then also trying to how they treat their employees. And I think that's one of the most important things. Yes, as the consumer, we have a right to be angry, but we should also look at how they treat their employees and really focus on that and think, hey, that's not good. Even putting the money aside and things like that, just how someone is treated and how many hours they're given and how exploited they're being. And from what I've heard from many different stories from many different people, it's not good. It's not a good environment. But again, that might be, your mileage may vary, depends on your region, something like that. But still, with many of GameStop's follies, especially with the retro game initiative, which, with many of their issues. Another thing too that I worry about as well with GameStop potentially dying, which I'm not too sure about that, but if they do, is where do all the games go? Because GameStop has in the past had no issue with their company policy being we didn't sell that disc, let's cut it. And instead of potentially, I don't know if there's any way to have a tax write-off to donate it to a children's hospital or something like that, but no, you just cut it. So they cut the games, they break the boxes because they have too many boxes, yada yada. You do wonder every once in a while if this, if the entirety of the U.S. Side of GameStop goes under, where do all those games go? Especially the retro ones, that are being looked at by their very crack team of scientists. Where do those games go? So that's another worry that I have as well, especially the older ones, because the newer ones, as much as it would be terrible for Mario Odyssey to get, I don't know, it wouldn't get eaten because they taste terrible, but still have it be thrown away. It would be terrible, but Nintendo's making more of those. So that's not the big deal to me. The big deal to me is the older retro games, NES, Super NES, PS1, all those, N64, all those different retro games that you're now sitting back and you're thinking, what's going to happen to them if GameStop goes under tomorrow? Now, will they go under tomorrow? I disagree. I don't think they're going under tomorrow. I do think it'll be a very slow change. I don't know if it's going to be an immediate, like Toys R Us, like 0 to 100 situation. But you know what? I mean, even with Toys R Us, it was completely out of nowhere. This GameStop one, though, due to the fact that I think due to some of this news coming out and them trying to maybe court other buyers, I think that there's a good chance. I mean, maybe I wasn't paying much attention when Toys R Us was having their problems. It didn't seem like there was anyone to really court to try to buy Toys R Us. But I do think with, even if GameStop sales are down, video game sales are up. Yes, potentially more digital than physical. Yes, physical sales aren't doing too hot. But what I think they should do next, and this will be what another company, if they do get bought out, would potentially try to do, is trying to potentially even work with companies, indie game developers, and carrying their physical copies in store. Because I think that might be where they go next. And I know, it's a bit silly to say, if you're not selling mainstream, why are you going niche? It's the idea that, again, you're trying to build this community, you're trying to bring people into the store, and you're trying to kind of scratch, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So potentially trying to work with some of these newer developers for some of these really big games, potentially trying to if a company is kickstarting something and GameStop vets them and sees that they're actually doing a good job or they have a good track record, potentially getting involved in the game making process, which I know GameStop has done a little bit here and there, but I do think that it might benefit them more to get involved on the ground level a bit more often than not. Also potentially fixing their pay structure, not just for people working there, but also for some of these used games. I do think that there is, this GameStop can be improved. That's the thing. I think all of us, due to the memes and due to the fact that we've constantly gotten screwed over, we think of GameStop as a monolith, which, yes, it is a corporation, but I think we don't think of the individual people that would both be losing their jobs and also the general people who are, who live in an area that doesn't really cater to their gaming needs. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, there are a lot of places in the U.S. that internet, at least as of this recording, internet is not as good as we would like. Or as they would like, really. And there's plenty of different places. Like, I have some friends in towns that are literally 3,000 people. They, in their 20s, they are probably the youngest. They're probably the one that's bringing down the median age to 70 in their 20s. But seriously, they're in towns that still have, VCR rental stores. VHS. They're not renting VCRs, but they're renting VHS tapes. And, Netflix is laughable there. Downloading games, playing games as a service online is a laughable idea to these people because their internet is that bad. Right? So when we look at towns like that, to try to say, just buy it off Amazon. Just buy it off eBay. I mean, even in towns that there's great internet, still, depending on where you live in the U.S., you are rest assured 100% of the time that regardless of how competent or incompetent your local post office is, one of your damn neighbors is always stealing your packages. That hasn't happened here yet, but I am a little nervous because I have a package that hasn't come in yet. But still, when it comes to some people throughout the U.S., some people straight up say, yeah, I ordered this off eBay, Amazon, and I might as well have never did. And, at that point, it's always just a huge hassle, and if you get all your money back. So some people prefer going to brick and mortar stores. And with the loss of GameStop, that is losing a huge, gaming store in the general marketplace. Now, could you go to your retro video game store, your local retro video game store? Yes, and you should. But here's the issue, though. The issue is that, Ian Ferguson from the CU podcast, I've listened to CU podcast a lot, you guys should too, he's talked about this because he works in a retro video game store. I think it's Luna Video Games in Cali. I don't know where in Cali. But the point is that he works there and they don't get the wholesale wholesale discounts that other companies do, like Amazon or GameStop or Walmart. And that's actually a huge issue, because if you're, not so much that, oh, you shouldn't be supporting them if the game ends up being a bit more expensive than it would be at your GameStop or your Walmart or Target or something like that. Not that. It's the idea that if you want a wide variety of new games from your retro video game store, there's a good chance that they're not getting that wholesale discount, which means that they have less new games, which means that their selection may be even worse than your Walmart. Right. So at the end of the day, you should shop at your retro video game store, especially if they're treating you right, if they have great trade-in credit and stuff like that. You feel like they're very much there for you. You feel like they're not trying to take you for a ride. Support your local businesses, but at the same time, they might not have what you're looking for. If you're looking for brand new games, they'll have brand new consoles most likely, but still, they might not have exactly what you're looking for. And that can be kind of frustrating, because, again, it just comes back to this idea that, GameStop, as much as we shit on it, and we should, it does hold a place in this ecosystem. That's the way you look at it. Look at it like an ecosystem, right? We fucking hate them. And I say them as, again, their practices, some of what the company does, not so much the people that work there. Because they're put in a very awkward situation. I'm sure you guys have heard the stories where they literally have to try to get more pre-orders sometimes than sales. And it's like, wait, but you sold the thing. Why are you grading them on this shitty rubric? So we might despise GameStop as a company and its practices, but at the same time, it does hold a place in the ecosystem. But you know what? Again, it comes down to the question, is GameStop dead? Is GameStop going to die? I don't think so. I think a company's going to bail them out. The company will think that they have name recognition. Buying them will be a drop in the bucket. And then they'll restructure them to fit their needs. If it's Amazon, piss myself. That'll be hilarious. But I don't think it'll be an Amazon. I think it'll be another company trying to, perhaps foolishly, but trying to compete with other brick and mortar stores like Amazon. Hell, what could happen is, I don't know if you guys have been noticing the sweeping, the sea of red Target dots. But yeah, Targets have been taking over this great nation. And so I have a strange feeling that if Target wants to expand into video games, they could potentially sweep up GameStop and potentially have a stake in that, because they might know, we sell some games, but we're not really too hip and happening with the games. So how about we buy out GameStop and we see where that goes? Again, I have no idea. We'll have to see. Only time will tell. Either way, thank you all so much for watching this episode of Matt Rants. Please remember to like and subscribe if you liked the video. If you didn't like the video, you can also still like and subscribe either way. And please, down below, tell me what you think. Do you think GameStop is dead in the water? You think GameStop might get bought out? You think, who do you think GameStop might get bought out by if they do get bought out? Will it be Sinclair? It always seems to be Sinclair. Or Fox. Maybe Fox will come in. Or Disney. Disney will buy out GameStop. Anyway, so they'll have GameStop exclusives. You can only get this version of this character from Star Wars Battlefront X, Y, or Z here, and that'll be great. Everyone will fucking love being forced to shop at GameStop. Anyway, so please tell me any of your GameStop stories, good, bad, other, any good stories you have about working with, either working at GameStop or talking to GameStop employees, right? Maybe some of your best friends are GameStop employees. Maybe your worst enemies are GameStop employees. I don't know. Tell me everything that you want to say in the comments below. Really do want to hear it. Really do want to hear about it, because I think that, we hear so much negativity about GameStop that's pretty much well justified, but we hear so much negativity about GameStop, I do want to hear both sides of the argument. I want to hear both sides of people's experiences with GameStop. It can't all be negative. Mostly, perhaps, but it can't all be negative. All right, guys, so take care. Tune in next time for another Matt Rants, where we talk about something else potentially dying. Oh, no. I mean, we're in the middle of Halloween in July. Things are getting spoopy, guys. All right, so love you all. Take care, and see ya.